Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Free Baseball Pod. It's 11 days till opening day. Cannot wait for the season to get started. Spring training has been a lot of fun to watch. Really missed baseball. The lockout really made me miss baseball an extensive amount, more than I could have ever thought. But I'm glad that it's starting to get back going. Andrew, I believe you are just as excited, maybe even more excited as I am. But we have a very fun episode planned for you guys today, and it's going to be driven on one thing. We're going to talk about a little things that happened, but it's going to predominantly be Andrew and I's American League predictions for the 2022 season. So that'll include division winners, awards, and so on and so forth. Andrew and I will get into it. But before we start, we're going to talk about Carlos Correa and Trevor Story, the most recent and maybe the biggest free agents to come off the board late in the offseason. But as always, Andrew, I gotta ask, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's really creeping up on us. Like opening day, we weren't expecting it to be this soon. 11 days away. That's pretty crazy. I've just been enjoying, the spring training games, seeing Aaron Judge hit 2 homers today, Francisco Lindor 2 homers, DeGrom, watching Max Scherzer, watching Garrett Cole pitch. It's just really exciting, and I'm excited to deep dive into the AL today.
Yeah, lots of guys looking like they're already in mid-season form. See DeGrom reeling it back as he always does, over 100 multiple times. And as you said, Francisco Lindor and Aaron Judge hitting 2 home runs in their games today. And it's a lot of fun to watch. The teams are starting to take shape. Guys are starting to get reassigned to minor league camp. And the guys that stay in big league camp, you may even see in April. And it's very exciting to see all of the teams get ready to go for April 7th. But now we're going to get into the episode, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Twins' new acquisition, Carlos Correa. So I'll throw it over to you, Andrew. Carlos Correa to the Twins.
See, this one, I don't think anyone in the world predicted. We talked about KB to the Rockies in the last episode. Nobody thought that was happening. Carlos Correa to the Twins. This was something. If people thought maybe the Yankees would swoop in, even after getting Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, maybe the Cubs, Tigers earlier this offseason were seen as the favorite before they got Javi Baez, but the Twins, whatever they were, 75-win Twins, getting Carlos Correa.
I believe it was 73, but it was not a pretty record.
Yeah,
for the Twin Cities last year.
Very disappointing season.
Not pretty at all.
We'll talk about that later when we do the Central. But yeah, pretty upsetting as a Yankees fan to see how the Yankees basically set up this move for the Twins, taking the money from Josh Johnson's contract away from them in order for them to add a salary with Carlos Correa. Correa obviously couldn't get the contract he wanted because of the market after the lockout. I think he wanted probably like upward 8, 9, maybe 10-year deal. But he has a great situation. He has an opt-out after every year, after the first and second year. And then, so he'll be 28 years old next year. I think he's probably going to opt out and get a big contract then. So I think it's good for both sides.
I think it's really good for both sides. When I first saw that as a Yankee fan, like you said, yeah, I was a little disappointed because it looked like the Twins really fleeced us. It was like, all right, you can take our third baseman, you can take our shortstop if you pay the contract, the monstrous contract of our third baseman, and we're just going to get the best shortstop on the market. But at the end of the day, the Yankees were in it until the end. They offered Correa a 4-year deal, maybe not offered, but it was definitely negotiated. And it never came about. And as I said before, and as you said, Andrew, I think it's very good for both sides because it allows Carlos Correa to not only still be a free agent in his prime, but he can choose when he's a free agent next, whether it be after 2022 or 2023. And if he decides to play all 3 years in Minnesota, he'll still be only 30 years old when that contract is expired. So that is 30 years old. That's a very good age. It may even be better than where he's at right now. So, in terms of being a free agent, but Carlos Correa, he becomes, what is it? The highest paid infielder in terms of AAV, 35.5, 33. It was a big number, over 30. It was definitely a figure that nobody, I guess nobody was surprised about. Everyone knew Carlos Correa was going to get big money. even though it was not the length of contract that everyone anticipated. But he goes to the Twins. I will get into it in a little bit. I'm not going to spoil any of our picks. But the next guy that came off the board, another shortstop, he will move positions to the other side of the infield and play second base, and that is Trevor Story. He goes to the Boston Red Sox. Now, Andrew, let's talk a little bit about Trevor Story here. I don't really know how. Well, I mean, losing my train of thought here. I don't know how to feel about this, because I really think it's going to be a time thing in terms of if this contract is going to work out for him, because his home and road splits are not that amazing. And, he could very well be a product of Coors Field. Then again, Fenway Park has very favorable dimensions, and he is a very good athlete regardless of where he plays. But I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about this contract. I was a little upset the Yankees weren't there, but then again, I think the Yankees are in a good spot, and we'll get into that. But Trevor Story to the Red Sox. Andrew, let me hear it.
Yeah, I think this was I was very surprised that Story got a long-term deal. I think beginning of the offseason, people thought a long-term deal, but then we started talking about how he does have some arms concerns. He has the throwing arm that we don't know if he can possibly have Tommy John in the future about that. That's all just speculation. And then obviously the home road split, people want to see him away from Coors Field a little bit. So I thought for sure he was getting a 3 or 4 year deal wherever it was, Giants, Yankees, Red Sox. But he got his long-term deal, so good for him. And I like it for now because he gets to move to second base, and we don't have to worry about these arm concerns for next year. But if Xander Bogaerts ends up leaving, then as a Red Sox fan, I'd be a little concerned long term having Story for 5 more years.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It almost kind of looks like the Trey Turner, Max Scherzer trade to the Dodgers at the deadline, where they moved Trey Turner to second base, and that kind of signaled, all right, you know what, Corey Seager's probably going to have to go, and we're going to get our guy and put him at second for the time being. That's kind of what it looks like right now. Maybe Story will be good, and Xander Bogaerts is not playing anywhere other than shortstop for the Boston Red Sox. I'll tell you that right now. But yeah, with this move for 2022, it definitely makes the Red Sox a lot better, makes them more athletic, makes them better defensively. But long term, this could be Xander Bogaerts' last year as a Red Sox, and Trevor Story could be the shortstop for the foreseeable future. But that's all we're going to talk about in terms of free agency. Those were the 2 biggest names remaining, and they were the 2 last names to come off the board that are of any note that we haven't mentioned already. And Trevor Story to the Red Sox, 6 years, $140 million, and Carlos Correa to the Twins, 3 years, $103 million. But now it's time for the bulk and the purpose of this episode, and that is Andrew and I's American League predictions. And I'm going to start with you, Andrew. We're gonna kick things off right away. American League East. Let me hear who you have where, wins and losses. Give me some stuff about the American League East for 2022.
So the American League East, this is probably for me the most intriguing. It's my team is in this division, but also it's the most intriguing because there's 4 teams that can win it. Obviously the Orioles can't win it, but in first place, it's not often that when a team loses one of their best hitters, probably their second best hitter last year, and the Cy Young winner, and then they didn't make the playoffs, but then a lot of people expect them to win the division, and that's the Toronto Blue Jays. I have them at 102 wins this year, the most in the American League. And just some reasons why I think like this lineup, it's easily the best in the American League. I know last year the Astros led the league in runs. The Red Sox also a very good lineup, but just look at all the names in this lineup. Vladdy, Bo Bichette, they just added Matt Chapman. I know he had a down year, but who knows? 2020 and 2019 was pretty good. Teoscar Hernandez, one of the more underrated outfielders in the league. George Springer was injured a lot last year, but he can be a huge piece. They just traded Randall Grichuk away, but they still have Danny Jansen, Alejandro Kirk, who I mentioned as one of breakout picks, Kevin Biggio. And then the big part is this rotation. They did lose Robbie Ray, but they added Kevin Gausman, so it's pretty much even swap. Jose Barrios, they got the deadline last year. Hyunjin Ryu had a very bad year last year, but yeah, I think he might be aging a little bit. Might be a bad contract, but they do have pretty solid end of the rotation too with Alec Manoah, one of the nastiest sliders in the league, great young pitcher. And then for number 5, Yusei Kikuchi. I'd say that's for an all-star pitcher to be your number 5 starter. That's really good. And then they're also back in Toronto this year where they're comfortable. So I think that could definitely help. But for some reason, why they wouldn't win the division is obviously the bullpen. They don't really have any big names. They do have Jordan Romano, who's one of the best relievers in the league, but I don't think it's a league average bullpen. 16th in ERA last year, a lot of home runs allowed, 23rd in home runs per 9, and then obviously another thing that could stop them is the number 2 team in this division, the Tampa Bay Rays. I have them winning 99 games this year. They won 100 last year. And I think what's going to hold back the Rays from being a better team than the Blue Jays is their rotation. They don't have Glasnow for the year, obviously. They've lost some key pieces in previous years. Their aces here is Shane McClanahan, followed by Corey Kluber, Drew Rasmussen, Ryan Yarborough, and former top prospect Luis Patino. And Shane Baz out for a little bit too. It's the Rays every year, they don't really have that. Well, besides 2020, they don't really have that top line starting pitching, but they always put it together because they always have an amazing bullpen and a lineup that just scores runs. Like this year is probably their best lineup that they've had in a while, but they've always been able to do it with pitching because they're just a pitching factor over there. So yeah, I have the Rays. The Rays and Blue Jays are probably pretty interchangeable for the top of this division, but I do have them with 3 less wins than the Blue Jays. And then for my number 3 team, it was a close call between the Yankees and Red Sox, but I did end up putting the Yankees ahead of them. I think the offense is what holds this team back, which is crazy to say. 2019, they were one of the best offense in baseball, arguably number 1. But last year, they just had pretty much every hitter on the team besides Judge and Giancarlo Stanton underperform. So this year, they're going to need bounce back years from DJ, Glaber, Joey Gallo, if they want to actually have a chance to win this division. The rotation is good. I do think they need to add one of the pitchers from Oakland, either Sean Manaea or Frankie Montas, to be taken seriously as one of the better rotations. Right now, the Blue Jays, who've always had a worse rotation than the Yankees, actually have a better one than them now. But the one piece of this team that I think is fine is the bullpen. It's one of the deepest the deepest bullpens in the league. Chapman, Britton, Jonathan Loaizaga, Albert Abreu, guys like Clay Holmes, who quickly became one of the best relievers in the league second half of the year last year. And then for my number 4, I have the Red Sox, who I have them at 4 less wins than the Yankees at 88 wins. They won 92 last year and beat the Yankees in the wild card game and almost made the World Series before losing to the Astros. I think what's going to stop this team from making the playoffs this year is going to be the bullpen. I think the bullpen doesn't really have too many big pieces, many scary arms. They have, Matt Barnes, who's like their top. He's not really a guy that you want to trust as your closer. He has had his moments, but the lineup, as we said, the lineup is going to carry this team. Trevor Story, Xander Bogaerts, JD Martinez. That's one of the best top lineups in the league. And then the rotation, it's all right. Evaldi, Sale. They're going to need Sale to stay healthy. If Sale can stay healthy, this one too. If Chris Sale comes back and he's Chris Sale and Nathan Evaldi performs like he did last year, then I could see this team possibly make a run at the division. And then last, we just have the Orioles. Not really much to say. Adley Rushman, that's probably the thing you're most excited about this year. But besides that, I have them at 68 wins at 52 last year. So a little improvement, but Orioles fans, they'll be good in the future.
Well, Andrew, I think all of those are very realistic outcomes. We definitely differ in our predictions, and I'll just kick it off right away so we can keep moving along here. I'm not buying into the Blue Jays hype. I'm sorry. They're going to be very good, but I am not buying into that hype whatsoever. I'm not hopping on that train for 1 second. I'll get into that in just a minute. But in first place for the American League East, I have the Tampa Bay Rays. I have them finishing 99-63. In second, I have the New York Yankees. Yes, please call me biased, but I think what the Yankees did this offseason is going to be much better than what people have anticipated over the last few weeks. I don't really see this team being as bad as people think they are going to be. I think their pitching is still pretty strong. Their lineup is going to show us if they're going to come back to life. That's what's going to bring them over the top compared to most of these teams in the division. I have the Yankees at 95-67, second in the American League East, and third, I have the Toronto Blue Jays behind the Yankees at 94-68. And this is where I'm going to get into it. I'm just not buying that rotation. I'm sorry. You could say all you want about Yusei Kikuchi and Kevin Gausman. Yes, they lost Robbie Ray, but those are two guys in Kevin Gausman and Robbie Ray who got identical contracts and who, in my opinion, have most certainly peaked. It's not like these guys were tremendous starting pitchers for their entire career, like Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw and the DeGroms of the world. That is not the case here. Kevin Gausman has the word peaked written all over him, and he peaked at the most perfect time when he was an all-star in San Francisco, and he got a very good contract. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I'm saying he's going to be probably good this year, but for the remaining years of that contract, I think it's going to hurt the Blue Jays. I don't think he's going to be able to pitch at that ace level for 5 consecutive years. Maybe this one, but I really don't see him duplicating that season that he had last year. And the same goes for Yusei Kikuchi. He is just okay in my eyes. I'm not discrediting him at all. He was in fact an all-star last year, but he is awful against American League East teams. And now he is in a division where he has to play predominantly American League East teams. I don't understand why this team is getting so much hype, especially with their pitching. I understand the offense. The offense is tremendous. They are going to score a lot of runs and they're going to be fun to watch, but that bullpen is atrocious and that rotation is not as good as people think it is right now. I will tell you that right now. I have the Blue Jays at 94-68. And then I have the Boston Red Sox at 91-71. I just don't think that their pitching is going to get them over the top, especially with the question marks surrounding Chris Sale. They did lose some guys in the bullpen, guys like Adam Ottavino, but they did get some guys like Jake Diekman and Michael Wacha, two guys who were very good for their respective teams last year. And we'll see what they do with the rotation. They did sign James Paxton and they did sign Rich Hill. Rich Hill is in his 40s, so you really don't know what you're going to get out of him. And James Paxton coming off of 2 injury-riddled seasons back-to-back. Tommy John last season, so I don't really know how much we're going to see of him. It was a gamble. They took a flower on him, and we'll just see with the Red Sox. I think their offense is going to be pretty good. But it's going to be a very fun division race as it was last year. I think it may even be closer than it was last year. And then at the bottom of the barrel, I have the Orioles, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as you think they're going to be, Andrew. I have them at 69-93. Yes, they did add some guys to their team. I'm not saying that's going to make them better. I'm not going to say it's going to make them worse. I think that they are definitely trending in the right direction with the guys they have in the farm system in terms of Grayson Rodriguez and Adley Rutschman. Those guys are almost ready to come up and make an impact like the Orioles have been grooming them to. They got Jordan Lyles, some guy that'll just eat innings for them. They also got Robinson Chirinos and Rougned Odor, 2 veteran guys that will get some consistent at-bats, and maybe they'll be good enough to the point where the Orioles can flip them at the deadline for some sort of value. But I don't think they're going to be miserably awful as they've been the last 4 seasons. And I got to give them credit. They offered Carlos Correa a contract, and there is just no way that he was going to go there. But they showed that they want to compete, and Carlos Correa was the perfect guy for that. You get him there for 10 years, he's going to be your centerpiece as these new guys start to file in through the minor leagues. I thought this was a really good sign of encouragement for the Orioles. But yeah, they finish in last place. And the AL East, it may be the toughest division in baseball, I'll tell you what right now. But I think some of these teams are going to surprise a lot of people in positive and negative ways. But it should be a very, very fun season. So now we're going to move on over to the American League Central now, and I will start it off there.
First, I want to say some thoughts. I'm completely on the opposite side of you. I'm fully on the Blue Jays train this year. I think
I can tell they're the best team in the American League for you.
They have 102 wins this rotation. is incredible. I don't care what you say about Kikuchi. I know he does give up a lot of home runs, and there's a lot of home runs being hit in this division. Obviously, there's very friendly hitter parks in Fenway, or Camden, and Yankee Stadium. But to have him, a guy like that who had like a sub 3.5 in the first half last year, I know the second half was very bad, but to have that guy as your 5 starter, and Gausman,
He's a good addition. No, he's a good addition. They're all good additions. I'm not buying into the hype. They're going to really have to show me that that pitching rotation is as legit as it is. I love Manoah and I love Berrios, but the other two that they added, I think they were good adds for this year, but I just don't think they're going to be as good as everyone thinks that they're going to be.
well, we are talking about this year, our prediction for this year.
Yeah, and I'm saying this year, I don't think that they're going to be as good as they were last year, and that's what the Blue Jays are anticipating. The one that I think will be the closest to that form is Gausman, and I still don't think he's going to be as good as he was in 2021 with the Giants.
Yeah. Also, I want to just mention the Yankees. I don't know how the betting odds for most websites I looked at, they have the Yankees as the favorites. I don't see the Yankees as, like, if their offense performs like it did 2 years ago, yeah, sure. But right now, the way this team's constructed, a league average offense last year with no additions to the rotation, all they did was lose Corey Kluber. And now
that is definitely something I think they should have addressed, and they should have gotten another starting pitcher. But they're banking on their young guys. Maybe some of their young guys will show them that, hey, yeah, maybe they will be effective for them.
But I don't.
American League East is tough, man, and that was a tough division to predict. There's a lot of good teams, and they showed it last year. There were 4 90-win teams in that 90 plus wins. The Rays had 100, but it just goes to show the 4th place team had 91 wins last year. 4th place. That's incredible. And all those teams were improved, in my opinion. Yeah, maybe the Rays, they may have hit themselves. They may not have improved, but they're the Rays.
The Rays are going to raise. The Yankees needed to improve. I think everyone said after last year, even though the Yankees won 90 games, it was a disappointment of a year.
There was definitely an underwhelming season for them.
And all they did was bring the only additions they have are Josh Donaldson, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa,
and those, in my opinion, are a lot more impactful than people really think that they are. That's why I have them as high as I do. Yes. I value them. I value the game that both of those players bring to the Yankees, because they're two people that bring two very different things that the Yankees have desperately been missing, and maybe even be one of the reasons why they cannot get over the hump in the championship series. But we'll just have to wait and see. We're going to move on now to the American League Central, and I'll start it right off. I don't really think this is disputable. This is probably the weakest division in the American League, maybe one of the weaker divisions in all of baseball. The Chicago White Sox are going to run away with this division. I had them at 96 and 66. They went out and they made some moves this year. They re-signed Eloy Garcia, utility player, and they did lose some bullpen guys, but they quickly added to that already scary bullpen with Craig Kimbrell, Garrett Crochet, and Michael Kopech and Liam Hendricks. They went out and signed Joe Kelly, and they brought in Kendall Graveman, who was arguably one of the better relief pitchers in all of baseball. They also signed another utility man in Josh Harrison. Like I said, they stacked up an already stacked bullpen, and they locked down depth at all positions, because Harrison and Garcia, they can play all over the diamond in the infield and in the outfield. They were 93 and 69 last season, and they won the American League Central. They lost in the division series to the Houston Astros, but this team is going to win the division. There is no way around it. I really don't care how good the Twins got. It's not going to be good enough to beat the White Sox. They are just a much more complete team than anybody else in this division. Speaking of the Twins, I do have them improving much better than last year. I have them at 2nd place at 83 and 79. Now, the big move, obviously, we just talked about it. That was Carlos Correa. They brought him in 3 years, $103 million. They also acquired pitcher Sonny Gray from the Cincinnati Reds. They signed starting pitcher Dylan Bundy, and they also acquired catcher Gary Sanchez and third baseman Gio Urshela in the Donaldson, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa trade with the Yankees. Now, they did upgrade their offense and their defense tremendously on both sides of the ball, and they're still lacking in pitching though. Sonny Gray is not going to be the end-all be-all. He is not going to get you to the World Series by himself, or even to 90 wins by himself. was a good pickup, but I didn't like how they gave up one of their best pitching prospects for him, especially because he's older and he's starting to decline just a little bit. But we'll just see what happens with him. They look to be going for it after last year. They do have some guys that might be ready to come up, like Royce Lewis. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe they'll have a healthy Byron Buxton. There's just a lot of question marks with the Twins. That's why I'm not sold on them actually being as good as their additions say that they will be. And they were 73 and 89 last year. They missed the playoffs, and they were last in this division. Seriously underwhelming season. I had them in second place last year. They've completely missed that mark, but they'll definitely improve this year. And in third place, I have the Detroit Tigers getting closer to 500, 80 and 82. This is a team that showed very, very good improvements in the second half of 2021. They signed Eduardo Rodriguez to a 5-year, $77 million contract. They signed relief pitcher Andrew Chafin to a 2-year, $13 million deal. And they also bolstered that rotation once again by signing Michael Pineda to a 1-year deal. They acquired catcher Tucker Barnhart from the Cincinnati Reds. And the biggest one, they got their guy at shortstop for the next 6 years. That's Javi Baez. He got the same exact contract as Trevor Story, 6 years, $140 million. Now, their rebuild is slowly ending. They have guys that are almost ready to come up in Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green. Those guys, they look to hopefully make a big impact for the Tigers in some way in maybe next year, but definitely in 2023 or 2024. These guys are really close to getting up there and being maybe names that we hear throughout every season for some award, statistical category, based on the trajectories and the level that they have played in the minor leagues. And as I said before, they got their guy in Javi Baez. He's going to be a leader of this team. They went out and they spent top dollar for him. Lock down that shortstop position. Javi is still at a very good age. He's in his prime now. I thought that was a good contract for them. I thought they were going to be in on Correa because of the AJ Hinch connection, but nevertheless, they spent less and still got a good shortstop defensively and at times definitely offensively. Last season they were 77 and 85. I think they make a 3-game jump there, and then who knows, for the next few years they could continue to improve, but for now I have them at 80 and 82 in third place at the American League Central. Now in fourth place, I only have this team above the last place team that I have because they were able to keep guys on their remaining roster who were very good. And that is the Cleveland Guardians. Now, this team did absolutely nothing to improve anything this offseason. The only acquisition that they made is that they signed catcher Luke Maile, and they lost a former Gold Glover in Roberto Perez at that position, and his replacement is Luke Maile. That is just the bare minimum to improve. But like I said, they still have a lot of guys coming back that were a reason why they made the playoffs in 2020 and why they finished 80 and 82 in 2021. But I just see them trending downward. They're a team like the Oakland Athletics that just doesn't really spend on a lot of players, especially players that they groom, hence Francisco Lindor. We'll see where they go with Jose Ramirez. He's still their guy over there, and he's going to have a tremendous season. I have the Guardians at 78 and 84, and rounding out the American League Central for myself, I have the Kansas City Royals finishing in last place at 75 and 87. This is another team that they can be on the come up. They do have a pretty young roster and guys that will probably make an impact down the line, just not this upcoming season. They made 2 moves all offseason, and that was they signed Zach Greinke. They brought him home to where it all began. They signed him to a 1-year, $13 million deal, and then they traded for relief pitcher Amir Garrett. They traded away Mike Minor for Amir Garrett. Now, those moves to me, I don't know. I think it just increases depth. I don't really see how they are going to compete in this division. I don't see how anybody is, but they were 74 and 88 and obviously missed the playoffs last year, but I don't really see them making a huge jump. I don't know how much Zach Greinke is really going to impact this team as they are now, especially because he is really the only notable acquisition. No knock on Amir Garrett. He just doesn't pitch every 5th day, and there's a good possibility that he will win every 5th day. like Zach Greinke. But even with Greinke, his age is showing. He's starting to falter a little bit, and it's almost time that we say goodbye to one of our generation's better pitchers. But he's going to stick it out for at least another season. But yes, the Royals will round out my American League Central predictions. Now, Andrew, let me hear your thoughts and what you have forward to Central.
So the first place team, obviously everybody knows it. I don't think anybody, I think if you take 100 people and tell them to break the AL Central, probably 97 or 98 of them are going to pick the Chicago White Sox to win it. I have them at 98 wins last year, up from 93. Last year, I actually predicted them for over 100 wins and making the World Series, lose to the Dodgers, but injuries obviously played a factor into that. The rotation was better than we thought, but the lineup was hurt a lot of the year from some pretty weak lineups. This rotation, Giolito, Lance Lynn, Dylan Cease, Michael Kopech, Keuchel, and possibly Crochet if they give him a chance to start. This is the top 5 rotation in baseball. They did lose Carlos Rodon, but Cease is completely fine as a number 3. Maybe even that could even move up to the number 2 or the 1 later in the year. We'll have to hear more in this episode about that. The runs, they averaged 7th in runs per game last year, despite having a lot of injury troubles. Robert, Eloy, Abreu, Yon Moncada, Yasmani Grandal missed 2 months. He's one of the best hitters in the league. And their offense still went. Guys like Jake Lamb, Gavin Sheets, Yerman Mercedes picked up, were huge contributors. But the biggest strength of this team is the bullpen. Hendricks, Kimbrel, Graveman, Bummer. That's 4 of the top relievers in baseball, all in one bullpen. I thought they were going to trade Kimbrel, dump his contract off because they're already paying Graveman and Hendricks a lot of money, but they didn't. So, and also they added Joe Kelly along with, they have Garrett Crochet and Jose Ruiz. So this is the best bullpen in baseball. Maybe second best behind the Rays, but bullpen is really pitching overall. This team is going to win. They're going to breeze through this division. The only thing that could stop them is injuries. Second place, I have a very different prediction than you. You had this team in 4th place. I have the Cleveland Guardians in 2nd with 84 wins. They won 80 games and they pretty much went the whole year. Not the whole year, but a good 2.5 months without their ace, Shane Bieber, who was, in my opinion, the most valuable player in the 2020 season. So I think you get Shane Bieber back, you get Zach Plesac along to go with Aaron Savale, Chris McKenzie in that rotation. That's one of the better rotations in the AL. The lineup is not great. Bullpen is pretty strong. Emmanuel Clase, Brian Shaw, even Anthony Gose, former outfielder, who now throws 100. That's a pretty strong bullpen. So I have them at 84, which is 8 higher than what their over-under is set at 76.5 wins. And then 3rd place, I have the Twins. Last year, huge disappointment. As we talked about, I had them at over 100 wins. They were nowhere close to that. They did pick it up a little bit towards the end of the year, but the start just killed them. It's a horrible first 2 months. And now the rotation, just all they had, like you said, Sonny Gray is not going to get you 2 World Series. And it's a very weak rotation. Sonny Gray, Randy Dobnak, Bailey Ober. They need another piece. They are looking at maybe getting Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea. Even with that, I don't see them coming close to the playoffs. Unless their lineup decides to hit again, because they do have Carlos Correa. They have Gio Urshela, Gary Sanchez. So if their lineup wants to hit like they did in 2019 or 2020, then maybe, but I don't see this team making the playoffs because of their rotation, and bullpen is pretty weak too. 4th place, I have the Tigers at 77 wins, same as last year. They're definitely building something here, the Tigers. They were over 100. People expected them to lose over 100 games last year, and they were one of the biggest surprises. They didn't start off pretty bad. They actually could have had a chance of competing with the Yankees and the Mariners and the Red Sox for that second wild card team, I think. But right now, you're really just looking towards the future. You got Javi Baez. I think if they want an outside shot to make the playoffs, the rotation is going to have to be what sets them above. Right now, they got Eduardo Rodriguez, which I think a lot of people forgot about that signing because it happened a long time ago. And he's an ace. he had a very bad year last year, but his peripherals were very good. So I think he's going to have around a sub 3.5 ERA this year. Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal, I think these are the two keys for this team. These guys were two top prospects. Mize had a pretty good year last year. Skubal not so much. But if these guys can perform to their potential, I think that's what's going to put them as potential playoff team. Although I have them in fourth place, so I don't believe it. But they're a dark horse team, in my opinion. And then fifth, the Royals. I have them at 68 wins last year. A lot worse than last year where they had 74. But what I'm most excited about to watching this team is Bobby Witt Jr. He's the number one prospect in the league, upper 900s OPS, worth 30 homers and majors last year, 60 power tool. If I'm being honest, they're probably one of the least exciting teams in the league, but I'm going to be watching this team because of Bobby Witt Jr. And that's my Central.
I like that Central, Andrew. I think a lot of the teams that range from 2 to 5, you could really go any way with any of them, but nobody is dethroning the Chicago White Sox, and that's a fact. Nobody is going to overtake this team in that division unless someone has a miraculous season. It's going to take a whole lot of praying for someone to take down the Chicago White Sox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the White Sox, some people like to call them frauds because, they haven't really faced a real competitor ever since they've been a pretty good team. They haven't gone that far in the playoffs, as we've seen. So possibly, I don't think so. I think the White Sox, it's just how it is. They're in a week.
I think they're legit. I think the White Sox are legit. Now they have that postseason experience now after the last 2 seasons. So we'll see where this team goes. Hopefully it's in the step in the right direction. But now, Andrew, break down your American League West for us. Who do you have coming out of there? And what are other things that need to be talked about that happen in the West?
So in the West, there's 2 teams to choose from. Well, there is 5, but there's really 2 teams to choose from for winning it. And I have, once again, the Houston Astros, 94 wins. They had 95 last. I have them at 94 wins. They had 95 last season. This lineup is incredible. We saw in the playoffs. We saw in the regular season. They led the league in runs. So there were some games where, again, in that Red Sox series, where they just kept scoring, and you just how do you get past this lineup? They're hoping for a bounce back year from Alex Bregman. That would be huge, considering they led the league in runs, as I said, and he had a pretty down year from what he was in 2018, 2019. Now, obviously, still got Jose Altuve. They did lose Correa, and they haven't really have a replacement for him. They have Aledmys Diaz, which is very big offensive drop. Jordan Alvarez and Michael Brantley are obviously the key parts of this offense, holding it together. They're going to need those two guys to stay healthy, I think, if they want to win the division. And then Kyle Tucker as your 6th hitter. That just shows how deep this lineup is. And then the rotation, we got Verlander coming back from Tommy John, Framber Valdez, Luis Garcia, Jose Urquidy, Jacob Rizzi, Christian Javier, and then Lance McCullers. That's 7 legit starting pitchers. So they got the depth. McCullers is hurt right now, so we'll have to see about that, how much time he's going to miss. And we know elbow issues are pretty tricky, and he just had Tommy John a couple of years ago, so that's a little bit of concern. But I think what could prevent them is the Mariners. The Mariners are very good. And injuries, JV coming off Tommy John, who knows if he's going to be the same. And then the bullpen is not that great. It's about league average, 15th in ERA. We lost Kendall Graveman. Only guys you're really scared of in that rotation, that bullpen, are Ryan Presley, Hector Neris, and Ryan Stanek. And then for the Mariners, I have this team making the playoffs with 91 wins. They had 90 last year. They went pretty big, signing Cy Young winner Robbie Ray, and trading for Jesse Winker, one of the best outfielders in the league. And then Eugenio Suarez, a new third baseman, to replace Kyle Seager. The rotation is the weak point in this team. They have Robbie Ray, but then ended off with Marco Gonzalez, Chris Flexen, Logan Gilbert, which isn't really a scary deep rotation. They lost Kikuchi. So I do have this team at 91 wins because the offense got a lot better with Winker and Suarez. And they were one of the worst offense in the league last year. So, and they added Robbie Ray, one of the best. And the bullpen is very good too, and they added Robbie Ray. And the Mariners, they surprised everyone last year, and I don't think they were a fluke. I think they're in it. They're going to be a few games behind the Astros. I could see them winning it. And then for the Angels, this team, nobody should expect this team to make the playoffs just because they don't. Like, for years, we've just expected the Angels to be better because they have Trout, Ohtani, Rendon, but the pitching just lets them down every year. And they did improve pitching this year. They had Noah Syndergaard. Who knows how good he's going to be? We haven't really seen him pitch a lot recently. Michael Lorenzen, who's all right. Ohtani, Patrick Sandoval, watch out for him this year. He's a very high strikeout pitcher, so he's going to be good. But the pitching, the bullpen did make some pretty good improvements, I got to say. But there's just something with the Angels that I can't see them making the playoffs this year. I have them at 83 wins. They need, if they want a chance to make the playoffs, they need Ohtani, Trout, and Rendon to stay healthy the whole year. But if they're not a good team, for Angels fans, you have Ohtani and Trout to watch. So that's positive, obviously. And then fourth place, I have the Rangers at 77 wins. Rangers did a lot this offseason. They added Corey Seager, Mark Semien to make, which is probably the best middle infield in the league now. Also added John Gray, Mitch Garver. Couldn't add Kershaw, which would have been huge for that rotation, which I think is what's going to be the downfall of this team, because after John Gray, it's really nothing special. We got a bunch of young guys, Taylor Hearn, AJ Alexy, Dane Dunning, and then one older guy, Martin Perez. So it's really nothing special. So once again, 77 wins. Offense would probably be around league average because it was bottom 5 last year. Adding Semien and Seager is going to do a lot probably. And then to round it out, the A's did pretty much nothing. I don't think they spent like a single dollar, just traded away their big pieces. They should have kept at least one of Matt Olson or Matt Chapman for the future, but they just decided to trade both of them away. And they're probably going to trade at least one of their starting pitchers with Minaya and Montas. And so I have them at 70 wins this year. A's are going to be definitely one of the worst teams in the AL.
I like these. I really like your predictions, Andrew. I think the West, we're going to differ a little bit, but I don't really think there's too much to complain about with our differences. So I'm starting with the Mariners. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I got them winning the division. I think it's about time. It was their first 90-plus win season since 2003. I have them at 94 and 68. Really like what Jerry DiPoto in the front office has done with this team. You are right, though, that pitching is going to hurt them, and it's going to show. But that offense has gotten a lot better, and I think that they will they'll run into some luck, and they will bolster themselves into that Astros conversation in the American League West. So I have the Mariners taking home the crown this year, but I have the Astros at a close second. I have them at 92 and 70. I do think losing Correa is going to be a major factor in why they are not going to win the division, but still they're just an amazing team. Talk about all the cheating that you want to talk about, but this team has been consistently at the top of the American League for 5 to 6 years now. And like I said, you could bring up the cheating if you really want to, but the fact that they have been able to continuously be great, it's just, you can't just say they're cheaters and they're not good. Yeah, it doesn't make them look good, but they are still a good baseball team. And they are getting their ace back in Justin Verlander, which is going to be a huge acquisition for them, bigger than any offseason acquisition that they have made. Now, at number 3, I have the Angels. I have them at 85 and 77. I like that they got Syndergaard. They did really bolster this pitching up quite a bit. They re-signed their closer in Rafael Iglesias. They signed, like you said and I said, Noah Syndergaard. They also brought in Ryan Tepera, Aaron Loop, Michael Lorenzen, and Archie Bradley. They brought in 4 very solid and some very good bullpen arms. And that's what's been lacking, just pitching in general with this team. I feel like this offense is good enough to where they will score enough runs if they have the pitching to back that, where the pitching just won't implode and those runs will go by the wayside. I think the Angels made a big improvement. They made a step in the right direction, 85 and 77 for them. The Rangers, they spent the most money out of anybody in Major League Baseball this year, but I still don't even have them at 500 like you. I have them a little better at 80 and 82. But yes, like you said, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, John Gray made a lot of moves, a lot of splashes. It's just not going to be good enough. Their pitching is really just not that good. John Gray is good, but is he going to be really good? Probably not. He's never been really good. It's very tough to bank on someone like John Gray to carry a rotation when he has never been a Cy Young candidate. It's very tough. I do like the pickup though, but I have the Rangers at 80 and 82, and then rounding out the American League West for myself, I have the A's at 67 and 95. I thought you were being a little generous there, Andrew. I really think this team is going to be bad, and they're going to be really bad. There's no reason for it, in my opinion, but it happened. Let me just rattle off the names that they lost. Matt Olson, Matt Chapman, Starling Marte, Chris Bassett, Mark Canha, Trevor Rosenthal, Yusmeiro Petit, Sergio Romo, Yan Gomes, Mitch Moreland, Josh Harrison, Mike Fiers. Practically lost the entire starting lineup. There's just like, I don't know what they're doing. I kind of agree with you. They should have kept at least one of them, at least one of Matt Olson and Matt Chapman, to tear it all down. I just feel so bad for Oakland fans. This team was 86 and 76 last year. They were in it until like early September, and they have been consistently good, and they lost their manager and Bob Melvin. Everyone's gone. The ownership has decided we're just not going to pay. They didn't want to spend $1 until last week when they signed Jed Lowry and Stephen Vogt. They did bring in some guys that hopefully they can develop into good major league talent. That's what the A's do. They develop. They're like Tampa. They don't spend, but this was hard to watch for Oakland fans, that they're pretty much their entire lineup was just ripped to shreds, and they're going to have to suffer for a very crappy season by their team. And it's no fault of their own. But yes, Oakland will round out my predictions for the standings, as well as you, Andrew. But now I think it's time we hop in to our awards predictions before we hop into playoffs. So I'll kick things off with my MVP, and I have Aaron Judge. Please call me biased. I'm banking on the Yankees this year. You could say I'm a biased Yankee fan, but I'm just going based on what the numbers showed last year. And Aaron Judge was incredible last year. 39 home runs, 98 RBIs. He was an all-star. He won the Silver Slugger. He batted .287 with a .373 on base percentage, a .544 slugging percentage, and a .916 OPS. Now, one of the main reasons, despite that really good year from Judge last year, one of the main reasons I picked him as my MVP is that he's in a contract year. And there is no extension yet. There might be an extension by this week, but there still is no extension. Now, when players are in a contract year like that, especially at the age that Judge is at, that is very enticing for MVP picks. I think this is a very safe pick to have. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Yankee fan. I'm giving you the numbers. He was fourth last year in MVP. And I think Judge is going to continue to be the elite player and right fielder that we know that he is. And his contract extension, or if he doesn't decide to stay with the Yankees, he goes somewhere else, it's going to show why he is a safe MVP pick almost every year. And for a sleeper, I have Corey Seager just because he's going to Arlington and he tears it up in Arlington. So I'm excited to see the numbers that he puts up there in Texas.
I love that pick. It's not my MVP pick, but Aaron Judge, obviously, he's my favorite player. So I'm going to love that pick. I think he's the second most likely to win it besides Trout. But I'm not going to go. Did you have any final thoughts on Seager?
Not that, just pretty much that he's going to play in Texas, and I can see him really tearing it up next year. That's just a sleeper, though.
Yeah. So for my MVP pick, he's at 20-1 odds. It's Jose Ramirez.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I think it's kind of a bold pick, according to the odds a little bit, as we have guys like Trout, Ohtani, Guerrero, Judge. But this guy's, I feel like he's always been in that discussion, top 5, top 6 for MVP, always around the upper 800s, 900 OPS. Really, the only time we've ever seen this guy not be an elite hitter was the first half of 2019 when he had that horrendous, I think it was under sub 700 OPS, but then he did pick it up with a huge second half. Had a 7 WAR season, 6.7 WAR season last year, and he's able to stay healthy a lot. So I'm going a little bold with it. Jose Ramirez as my MVP pick, going to carry that Guardians lineup to about 70 something wins.
I like that, Andrew. I really like that. I really like J-Ram. I got to give that to you. It's a good pick.
Thank you. And then my dark horse, I've at 41 odds, Byron Buxton. I think Buxton, when he's healthy, could be one of the best hitters in the league, as we saw.
April tore it up.
April,
early May, and then he was done. But he was the best player on the planet for that stretch.
If
and
Byron
then
Buxton
injuries
can stay healthy, watch out. He could be an MVP.
Yep. I like that. I like both of those, even though, Buxton's kind of a stretch with the injuries. But J-Ram, this is a guy that needs one of those in his trophy case. He needs a league MVP because he is that good. So good pick by you.
So does Judge. Judge needs an MVP too.
Judge needs one too, yeah. And he has gotten robbed, but he's shown that he can be at that level consistently. But I'm going to stay in Cleveland for my Cy Young, Andrew. And I'm going to go with Shane Bieber, 2020 Triple Crown AL Cy Young Award winner. You mentioned it before. He was hurt for a good portion of the season, and now they are going to hopefully have him for a whole season. He was 7-4, 3.6 ERA, and he was an all-star, but he did not pitch as much as the Guardians would have liked him to. But he is only 26 years old. I think a lot of people forget how young Shane Bieber really is. And this man has so much upside potential, and he's already shown that he is one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball, and he's not even close to 30 years old yet. I really think Shane Bieber is going to, I know I had them lower, but I think that Shane Bieber is going to bounce back from those injuries and show everybody why he was the Triple Crown and Cy Young. And maybe he should have even been the MVP of the 2020 season because he was that good. But Shane Bieber is my Cy Young pick. As a dark horse, I have Chris Sale. I changed this pick because I had Sale at first, but then he went down in spring training. So now I was a little uncertain. At least with Bieber, I have more confidence in the health, and I think that he will return to form no problem.
Well, I like that pick. Shane Bieber, I'd say he probably has best 12-6 curveball in the league, or just curveball in general. Obviously, 2020, he was unreal. Should have won MVP. Not really sure why he didn't. I guess it's harder to win as a pitcher. But Shane Bieber, when he's healthy, probably a top 5 pitcher in baseball. So I like that pick a lot. And Chris Sale, I don't know how good he's going to be for a full season. He did look pretty good in September last year, though.
He did.
Mine, I'm going to stay with the Central, and I'm going to go a little bold here. I'm going to pick from the Chicago White Sox, Dylan Cease, the number 3 this year. He is one of the nastiest sliders in the league. Throws in the upper 90s fastball. He's very young. Top 10% K percentage, 31.9%. He had a 3.91 ERA and nearly 200 innings last year. And I think Cease is going to take a huge step up this year. Have around a 2.6 ERA, I think, for the White Sox. Around a 1 WHIP. So that's my pick. And then for dark horse, I have Jose Barrios, which I think was a very good pickup. Great job extending them, Blue Jays. He's at 20-1 odds for the Cy Young.
I like that. I like the Barrios pick. I think he will definitely show a lot of people why he is as good as he is. I don't want to say he's had down years, but when he was with the Twins, he was lights out, and it looked like he was going to be a perennial Cy Young pick. He had a little bit of struggles in between 19 and 20, but he picked it up last year, really showed it with Toronto that he is a top level arm, and he could be a threat in a rotation. He could possibly be a 1 in some rotations. With the Blue Jays, he's going to be a 2, depending on how all things go, maybe even a 3. A very good pick there, Andrew. I like the Cease pick. I like the creativity here, Andrew. This is really good. This is making for a good discussion here. Dylan Cease, he was phenomenal last year. That's a great pick to have. Another guy that has a tremendous upside potential, still very young. Really excited to see what Cease does with the White Sox. Moving on to Rookie of the Year now, I have Shane Baz of the Tampa Bay Rays. Yes, I know he's hurt now. He's at plus 1,800 odds, and he's only 22. He was 2-0 in 3 starts last year with a 2.03 ERA. He's got an incredible fastball, a lot of life, a lot of great secondary pitches as well. And it's just the fact that he's playing for Tampa Bay. They're wizards in terms of pitching. They know how to get their hurlers to the best of their potential. And I feel like if Shane Baz gets enough innings and he starts enough games and is good in enough games, I think he could really run away with this pick. And he is definitely an arm to keep an eye out for the future in Tampa. And who knows, you know how Tampa operates. Once they get really good and they start to hit arbitration, he may go somewhere else. But Shane Baz, keep an eye on him for Rookie of the Year.
Well, I really like that pick. Shane Baz, when he first debuted, I think everybody got really excited, like seeing all those clips from Pitching Ninja. His upper 90s fastball can reach up to 102. And it's really interesting to think how he's still a rookie, because I feel like we saw a good amount of him last year. And I honestly didn't even think about him really for my Rookie of the Year pick, because you don't really think of a guy who pitched around, what was it, like 30 something innings last year.
Yep, still qualifies though, so you got to give it to him.
Debuted in the 2020 playoffs.
So yep,
it's a little weird just thinking about that being a Rookie of the Year. But he does qualify, so that could be your pick. And for mine, I have a guy who I mentioned earlier for the Orioles. Everyone's been so excited to watch this guy play. Ever since he got drafted number 1 overall a few years ago, was Adley Rushman. He's the number 2 prospect in baseball. One of the best catching prospects we've seen in years. Like, these hitting stats in the minors are crazy. And he's at 5-1 odds, so he's one of the favorites to win it. And he's the only thing that's really exciting in Baltimore, but I think he's going to have a huge year.
I like that too, Andrew. Adley Rutschman, it's been a long time coming. I mean, it hasn't been that long, but he's been on the radar ever since the College World Series back with his Oregon State team. And Adley Rutschman, switch hitting catcher for the Baltimore Orioles. Hopefully he does pan out and become that stud that everyone has projected him to be. So good on you there, Andrew. I'm going to move over to reliever of the year now. And I'm going to go with maybe the safest pick, the back-to-back recipient in 2020 and 2021, and that's Liam Hendricks. He had an absolutely phenomenal year last year, and I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. He was 8th in the Cy Young voting. He had a 2.54 ERA with 38 saves, and he was one of the reasons why the White Sox were as locked down as they were, especially towards the later half of many games. And this would make it 3 in a row. He won it in 2020 with Oakland. He won it in 2021 with Chicago. And I think in 2022, he will definitely be that guy once again. He's a huge piece to that team, and he's very exciting to watch. He gets all fired up, pumped up. You just love the energy that he brings to the ballpark every day. Great stuff. And as I said before, I don't really see him slowing down anytime soon. So give me Liam Hendricks for reliever of the year.
Yeah, Liam Hendricks, pretty easy pick there. He's the best reliever in baseball. So not really much you have to explain when you do a pick like that. I'm going to go with 33-year-old closer for the Astros, Ryan Presley. He burst onto the scene a few years ago when I think he went his first, 15 appearances for the Astros without giving up a run. Had a bit of a down 2020. Don't really know what happened there. It was a shortened season, so things happen. But he had a 2.25 ERA, 53 scoreless outings out of 64 games last year. He's got amazing peripherals, top 10 K percentage, walk percentage, fastball and curve spin. So I think Ryan Presley's going to get a huge year for the Astros this year, sub 2 ERA.
I like that pick too, Andrew. Ryan Presley is going to have to take an increased role now with the departure of Kendall Graveman. I know he wasn't in Houston that much, but Ryan Presley has been a very reliable and dependable arm for the Houston Astros for many years now. I think that's a very good option to choose. Now, I'm going to also stay in Houston for my comeback player of the year, and that's got to be Justin Verlander. He's coming off Tommy John surgery at the age of 37 years old, and he will be a driving force in this rotation, regardless of what happens. It's JV. It's JV. He's been one of the best pitchers of our generation. He's a surefire Hall of Famer, and he looks loose out there. I've seen some footage of him in spring training, throwing some bullpens. He looks like he's ready to go. And honestly, I think last year's World Series could have gone a lot different if Verlander was with the Astros. It definitely could have changed the outcome because the Astros were very shorthanded on pitching and yet still went to 6 games with the Braves. And Justin Verlander just adds that much more to anybody's rotation. They gave him 2 years, $50 million to come back. And I think that was completely fair. And like I said, because it's JV, he's that good. He's that impressive of a pitcher. And he is my comeback player of the year.
Well, I don't know so much about that pick. I can't really say I like it because he is obviously just Verlander is very good in the deep age in the 40s. But a guy coming off Tommy John, I just don't see him having. I definitely think he's going to be a solid pitcher, maybe low 4s, high 3s. I don't think he's going to be good enough to win comeback player of the year this year, though. But it should be interesting to see him pitch again. We haven't really seen him pitch since the 2019 World Series. So for my comeback player of the year, I have Eloy Jimenez. I expect him to have a big year last year. And then he had the shoulder. He separated his shoulder trying to rob a home run in spring training. And then I think the White Sox think he died or something because they held his jersey in the dugout before a game and signed it, which I thought was a little excessive for a guy who's going to come back later that year. But he came back in July, didn't really do much. And he's one of the best power bats in the league when healthy. Had 559 slugging in the shortened season. So I think this guy's bound for 45, 50 homers this year.
Wow. 45 to 50 home runs for Eloy Jimenez. That, to me, is a little bit of a stretch. But I like the pick in terms of the award because he does add a lot of value to an offense, to any offense. And hopefully he will continue to grow in the designated hitter spot. We'll see what he does in the outfield. He's a little questionable on the outfield side, but Eloy Jimenez, I do like your pick, and I respect your honesty for not liking my JV pick, but I do like the Eloy pick. I think that's a very solid selection. And the last award that we're going to touch on for our American League episode, and that's Manager of the Year. And I got Scott Service of the Seattle Mariners. Now, I think this team is going to make the playoffs for the first time in 20 plus years. I have them winning that division. I could even see this team making a deeper playoff run if they get the luck that they can find. But I thought this award could have and maybe should have gone to him last year with the work that he had done with this team and everything that they had gone through, and they just surprised everybody. And they won 90 games. They did miss the playoffs, but I think the Mariners take a big enough leap so where their manager can be honored in this manner. Scott Service, your Manager of the Year for the American League.
So that's a pretty good pick. I think he should have won it last year. I forgot who won it last year, but I think that Scott Service definitely deserved it, despite the team not making the playoffs. I think this year I got Charlie Montoya. I talked about the Blue Jays, how I'm on their hype train this year. And with them winning over 100 games in my predictions, I think that honor is going to go to Charlie Montoya, who's only in his 3rd or 4th year as manager, I believe.
I believe it's his 4th year now. But still, maybe 3rd. I think it might be his 3rd. But definitely an up-and-coming manager. I really like Montoya over there with Toronto. Despite what I said about them before, I think Charlie Montoya is a very good manager for that team. But that's going to wrap up our awards portion of this episode, and we're going to head into the final stretch here, and we're going to talk about our playoff predictions. And I'm just going to go straight up, Andrew, and then you tell me who you have. So for the buys, I have the Rays as the 1 seed and the White Sox as the 2. I then have the Blue Jays, the number 5 seed, traveling to Seattle to play in the wild card round against the 3-seeded Mariners, and I have the number 6 Astros facing the number 4 New York Yankees. I have the Mariners and Yankees advancing. The Yankees will go on to face Tampa Bay in the division series, and Seattle will face the White Sox in the division series as well. I have the Yankees and White Sox advancing to the championship series, where the Yankees will be bested by the White Sox. And I have the Chicago White Sox winning the American League for 2022.
So for mine, I have the buys. Well, first of all, I gotta say the White Sox. That's probably a pretty good pick. That's what I had last year, so not too outlandish there. I have the White Sox and the Blue Jays as my buys. Astros in the first round beating the Mariners 2-1, and then I have the Yankees at the 5 seed beating the Braves, the 4 seed, in 2 games. And then the Blue Jays playing the Yankees. Blue Jays I have winning that in 6 games. White Sox playing the Astros going to 7 games. And then if you listen to me early in this episode, you won't be surprised to hear that I have as my World Series team the Toronto Blue Jays beating the White Sox in 5 games.
I think that's another safe option, even though I disagree on where the Blue Jays are at. I still think they're going to be very good, but I think it's a safe pick to have coming out of the American League. But that is going to do it for our AL predictions. Now, as always, before we depart for episode 4 here on the Free Baseball Pod, another shout out to my mom. She got the trivia question right last week. The trivia question was, who was the last catcher to win an MVP award? The correct answer was Buster Posey in the National League for the 2012 season. Buster Posey just retired following the 2021 season. So good luck to him in retirement. I hope everything goes well for him. You were definitely a lot of fun to watch, Buster. You made the game just look fun. You made catching look easy, even though it is not. And we wish you nothing but the best here at the Free Baseball Pod. But Andrew, what is our question for episode 4?
Our question for today is, who led the American League in runs batted in the 2021 season? So make sure to reply to our tweet, comment on YouTube or Instagram, TikTok, if you know the answer.
Yep, that's gonna wrap it up here. We want to take just a minute before we close it out and give a special thank you to everybody who has shown support on every social media platform that we have, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter. We've eclipsed 100 followers on our Twitter account. Andrew and I cannot stress enough that we thank you all for your support. It really means a lot, and we love your viewership and the feedback that we have been given. Really does mean a lot. We're going to keep chugging along here as this season opens up and unfolds. Next week in episode 5, you should be ready for our NL predictions, and we will put them all together for our ultimate World Series prediction. So stay tuned for that. Now, for Andrew Mendez, I'm Will Talent, and we're saying so long here in episode 4 of the Free Baseball Pod.